Hello and welcome to week 9. This is Dr. Harris, and I'm going to talk briefly with you this week about some of the details of our Unit 3 assignment on explanations. On our Unit 2 assignment, we did an assignment where you had a lot of text and just a few accompanying visuals. In week 9, we're going to flip that and ask you to create a presentation that has primarily visuals and then minimal accompanying text. So this presentation walks you through some of the qualities or features of your explanation project that I'm going to be looking for and help you to draft the project this week. So an explanation, what is it? Explanations clearly show you how to do something, explain what happened, or provide a new insight, and their purpose is to change the audience's knowledge or abilities. So while we tend to think of explanation as kind of a static presentation, you're really going to have to be persuasive in a good explanation to have it have weight with the audience. So some examples of times when you might be doing explanation activities at your workplace would be if you're creating a training course, if you're doing sales training, if you're writing up any kind of procedures and instructions, or if you're creating online help guides or anything that has to do with software or hardware. And the example that I want to walk you through of an effective online help guide is Evernote. And so some of you might be familiar with Evernote. It's an organization system, works across platforms and helps you stay organized with notes. And you can share with this product, and you can also kind of draft in a number of places. So what I'm going to do is walk you through quickly some of the things that makes this a good example of explanation. So here on the screen you see Evernote's Quick Start Guide. One of the things I really like about this particular Quick Start Guide is that it gives you this kind of pared down model of what you need to do. So as an explanation, this is really nice for those people who are like, I don't care about the more intensive pieces of the software. I just want to know how to get started to create a note. So let's say you're in the middle of a meeting, you know you should use Evernote, but you don't have time to figure out how to do so. The Quick Start's just kind of the basic, easy peasy way of getting started. Now notice here that we have the larger pieces of important information, the titles in the headings in larger text, really quick description of what Evernote does, and then immediately an image that conveys the fact that you can use this on a number of devices fairly easily without having to say that in the text. Get started in 3 easy steps. First, you can create a note. It just shows you the image where you would create that note, and then it breaks it down for you more specifically dependent on the type of device that you have. But this is all an accordion menu. So if this image is enough for you to get started, that's fine. But if you say, I'm on a Droid, I kind of need to know how to work it even though this when this doesn't immediately pop up. So this is additional information. If you're thinking about this kind of method in terms of the project that you're going to do with an explanation, you might have this image or graphic on your slide, and then some of the information that you include in the notes for the slide might be, if you're on a Mac, you might need to open it this way, if you're on a Droid, this way, etc. The second step is just to add some content, which is really easy. Content can be almost anything, but in this example, it's text. And step 3, find notes on your phone and computer. So once you've created this note, this project plan note, how can you find it? And this is just, again, an image with really simple written instructions. So if you're going to do something that is being presented in front of a room or digitally over synchronous communication software, this might be, again, your image in the main frame, and then your text in your notes area might just be a description of what that image is. So the other nice thing about this example is it moves from more simplistic to more complex. So you might think about that in your presentation, doing the same thing. What are the most simple elements that your audience can do quickly to get started, and then move into more complex elements. So let's say you want to take a note. A note in this context can be anything. Again, an image, a graphic of some examples of notes, followed with many ways to take notes. So in your example, in your presentation, your image might be this, and the description of that image might be in the notes section underneath that. So this would be, in other words, what you read, what you go through with your audience, and then this is the image that they see on the slide itself. Again, there's this accordion method. You won't be able to do accordions, obviously, in a static presentation, but think about it in this particular way, that your image on your screen might be this, kind of a simple image, and then your notes area underneath will be kind of that accordioning out. That's not even a real word. Using the accordion method to flesh out what is on that page. So you can actually go to Evernote, the help system, and look at the rest of these to see how it goes from into even more complex issues. But right now I want to get back to our presentation so we can talk about not just a good example, but a bad example and how you tell them apart. So good explanations use clear language, and again, just as we've been working on those 3 C's, the correct, clear, and concise, you're going to want to use all of those in both the slides you have and the notes text underneath those slides. You'll break the process into steps, which seems like a no-brainer, but really thinking about how small the steps should be in order for your audience to really complete a process. It's going to take a little bit of planning and preparation. Organize the steps to be easily followed, and we're going to do peer review of each other's work again, and I'm going to ask your peers to comment on whether or not the steps or the parts of the process can easily be followed, or if there are gaps that need to be filled in. The 4th point here is actually one of the most important. You're going to want to include useful visuals and effective design. Now you can go too far toward the end of the spectrum where you're using a lot of text and not many visuals, or you're using visuals that are more along the lines of clip art and not necessarily effective. You're going to want to try to strike that balance where your visuals are effective, that they're well designed, and that your audience can understand them primarily through the slides, but also through the notes as well. They need to be complete and detailed, and again, complete and detailed seems obvious, but how complete, how detailed? Remember, this is primarily a persuasive document. How much do you need to give your audience for them to complete this task without making them feel stupid? If you tell them how to turn on the computer and go to an area of the computer, it might be a little too much information for those who are clearly well versed in doing that. You might want to caution readers on possible problems. One effective way of getting students or your colleagues or whoever you're presenting to into the mindset to be able to hear the information is to say, have you had the problem with X? Have you not known how to start Evernote? Have you had a problem with getting reprimanded by your supervisor for poor emails? Connect into that and say, I have a way of solving this problem through the instructions that I'm about to share with you. And then make sure they're written for readers who need them. Again, we don't want to necessarily walk through descriptions or explanations, but in a point at which we need information to be able to do something better, the information needs to be clearly written for us, for the readers who are going to complete a task or a process. So now we're going to talk about an ineffective method of giving instructions, and it's probably not fair to pick on IKEA because they do write instructions for literally anyone to be able to use around the world. But folks who shop at IKEA and buy furniture who, that isn't exactly the best quality might have run into a set of instructions that looks something like the instructions for this bed frame. So we're going to look at these instructions and talk about effective visuals. So in other words, in what ways can we create visuals that might be more effective than what we see in this IKEA version? Perhaps moving farther toward what the Evernote example showed us. I'm going to just scroll this down a little bit so you can see more on a single page. So here's the bed frame instructions. This is completely visual, so this would be comparable to you only having images on the frames or the slides and then never including notes or including notes that are insufficient. So we can see from this first point here, all you need is a screwdriver, basically a Phillips head screwdriver to complete this. He's very happy about that. It's better to complete with a friend. And it's better to probably put this on a rug with fringe, Persian rug, I guess that's the international sign for rug. And if you get frustrated or don't understand how to put it together, if you call them, they will help you on the phone. And then what you see are a series of images. If you're familiar with these parts, this might not be difficult for you to put together, but if you're unfamiliar with these, it could be really frustrating to figure out exactly what those are or how they work. And then what you see from this point on are kind of a series of instructions that have some numbers and some photos, but not real specific information of how that works. So one of your goals in this project is to understand how you can use these kind of visuals along with text to explain what exactly the reader needs to do at each step. And these are kind of the cam and lock systems that those of us who buy inexpensive furniture might be familiar with, but people who are not engineering inclined or struggle with putting things together, this might be very frustrating for them to just see these visuals. So in short, what you're looking at is something between IKEA and Evernote. So something that gives effective visuals, but also provides text and examples that help to support those images. And this is a good example of design rule of thumb when you're designing presentations like this. First of all, you're going to want visuals that are simple and evocative and easily express a complicated concept. You might need to create some of those visuals. You might be able to find them online, but you're going to want to try to find images or pictures that clearly demonstrate something for the audience. The IKEA images are really good. They're just not great without accompanying texts. Don't go crazy with color. Pick one or two basic colors and use throughout your presentation. Sometimes the more color you have, the more distracting it can be. And then when you're in doubt about how much to put on a slide or how much to put in a text, think about the KISS method. Just keep it simple. Don't do overwrought transitions. Don't do a lot of animations or distract people if you're giving a presentation live. And then for our purposes, when you're doing kind of that static slide and notes features, try not to clutter up the screen with a lot of different objects. Kind of try to keep it to one or two things. And then follow the 10-20-30 rule. 10 slides equal about 20 minutes, and make sure you go with 30-point font or larger on any of those slides. So if you do have to put text on a slide, and there is a point at which you might have to do that with this presentation, just make sure you're not putting a big chunk of really tiny text that your audience has to read up on that screen. So here are some challenges I want to leave you with to think about as you get started with this project. First of all, I don't know if you're like me, but I hate reading instructions. I hate implementing instructions. I hate when people try to tell me what to do. I want to be able to put together the desk without looking. I want to be able to get through the software program without accessing the help feature. So what you're doing right now is really the first step is persuading your audience that they need to have these instructions in the first place. And sometimes those readers, the people you're presenting to, are frustrated. Maybe they've failed. Maybe they're in this workshop because they write ineffective emails and they're not really open to hearing how to do better because they're still angry about getting reprimanded. Maybe they're really struggling with how to reach an audience of non-experts, and this is the last kind of hurrah before they give up totally. So think about your audience as one that is potentially frustrated, and think about reaching out to them to convince them to join you in walking through this process. And then as you lay out the process, as you storyboard and put in some of the text is in this first draft, really think about how you can best put each step so that the readers understand it immediately and don't have to either go over it twice or return to slides or return to parts of the presentation to figure out what to do. So as you get started, think about how do you meet these challenges? How can you be persuasive? How can you have excellent images and just enough text to be able to explain to the reader the steps in the process? Explanations can be as easy or as complex as they need to be, but the key for this assignment is to be able to, again, reach that audience just like we've done in all of these other examples and projects. We're just going to keep hitting that idea of how do we make people listen to us and complete something that we want them to complete, or do something or believe something that we want them to do or believe. So jump in, get started, storyboard out your slides. This week it's start drafting, and we'll get together and peer review and talk to each other about how well we're meeting our readers' needs. Please let me know if you have any questions, and have a great day.